A reading from the book of Joshua. The Lord said to Joshua, "Today I have rolled away from you the disgrace of Egypt, and so that place is called Gilgal to this day." While the Israelites were camped in Gilgal, they kept the Passover in the evening on the 14th day of the month in the plains of Jericho. On the day after the Passover, on that very day, they ate the produce of the land, unleavened cakes, and parched grain. The manna ceased on the day they ate the produce of the land, and the Israelites no longer had manna. They ate the crops of the land of Canaan that year. Holy wisdom, holy word.
The good news of Jesus Christ according to St. Luke. Now all of the tax collectors and sinners were coming near to listen to Jesus. And the Pharisees and scribes were grumbling and saying, "This fellow welcomes sinners and eats with them." So he told them this parable. There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger of them said to his father, "Father, give me the share of your existence that will belong to me." So he divided his life between them. A few days later, the younger son gathered all he had and traveled to a distant country, and there he squandered his existence in dissolute living. When he had spent everything, a severe famine took place throughout that country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him to his fields to feed the pigs. He would gladly have filled himself with the pods that the pigs were eating, and no one gave him anything. But when he came to himself, he said, "How many of my father's hired hands have bread enough and to spare? But here I am dying of hunger. I will get up and go to my father, and I will say to him, 'Father, I've sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me like one of your hired hands.' So he set off and he went to his father. But while he was still far off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion. He ran and put his arms around him and kissed him. Then the son said to him, 'Father, I've sinned against you and against heaven. I am no longer worthy to be called your son.' But the father said to his slaves, 'Quickly, bring out a robe, the best one, and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. And get the fatted calf and kill it, and let us eat and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He is lost and is found.' And they began to celebrate. Now, his elder son was in the field. And when he came and approached the house, he heard the music and the dancing, and he called one of the slaves, and he asked what was going on. And the slave replied, 'Your brother has come, and your father has killed the fatted calf because he has got him back safe and sound.' And the son became angry and refused to go in. His father came out and began to plead with him. But he answered his father, 'Listen, for all these years I have been working like a slave for you, and I've never disobeyed your command. Yet you have never given me even a young goat so that I might celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours come back, who has devoured your life with prostitutes, you killed the fatted calf for him.' The father said to him, 'Son, you're always with me, and all that is mine is yours. But we had to celebrate and rejoice, because this brother of yours was dead and has come to life. He was lost and has been found.'" The good news of Jesus Christ. Thanks be to God indeed. I remember one of my favorite, I like the whole set of stories by J.R.R. Tolkien, but the story of Frodo's birthday. When he has a birthday, when a hobbit has a birthday, what happens? He gets gifts for everybody. Everybody gets a gift. Everybody. So it's sort of like every time somebody has a birthday, you're always getting gifts. So it's a great thing. So everybody in that community, that little hobbit community, they're always wondering, whose birthday can we celebrate today? Whose birthday can we celebrate tomorrow? Whose birthday is the next day? It was like that whenever I was in Pine Ridge Reservation and we celebrated a funeral for someone who had died. He was not a great chief, but he was someone in the community who had been very important. And in the Pine Ridge Reservation community, when someone dies, the family puts on a meal. And in this school gymnasium, the family had gathered on the floor, and there must have been 500 people there, including those of us students from seminary who were there for a couple of weeks in order to have an experience on the reservation. We were there among those 500 people, and we listened to all of these different eulogies that people were doing. They had a church service beforehand and then came together and they all eulogized this guy who had died. And then every person who was there, everybody got to eat. That's a different way than the way we do things, isn't it? I mean, the way we do it, the church puts on a meal for the grieving family. The way we do things in our own lives, when it's somebody's birthday, we get presents. But whenever you're a hobbit, everybody gets presents. It's sort of like this story that we hear from Jesus. This guy had run off. He had asked his father. Now, you have to understand, to ask your father ahead of time for your inheritance is exactly as I translated it today. He asked him for his life. He asked him for his existence. That's all his father had to exist on. And he asked his father, give me everything that you have to exist on that's mine. Now, when the father did this, he not only had to give the younger son his, he had to give the other half to his older. So his older son was lying whenever he said at the end of this, you've never given me even a goat to celebrate with my friends. Well, son, he could have said, well, I did give you the half of your inheritance that was coming to you. But he didn't say that. The father didn't. But when the younger son comes to him and asks this, what he's really saying underneath all of that, give me, give me, give me, what he's really saying is, I really don't care if you live or die. I'm going to go and do what I want to do. I think, put yourself in those shoes. If someone said that to you, how would you feel? And the father said, okay. And he divided it. And a couple of days later, the son went off. Now think about it. Those of us who have lived life, some dissolute living ourselves, we have to be honest with ourselves. We all have some dissolute living in our past. But those of us who have gotten past that and who have become more stable and are older, we like to say, you better watch out. You better listen to what I'm saying. But the younger didn't listen. And they don't like to listen a lot of times. The younger don't. But that's not the point of this story, is it? He goes off. And as he goes off, he goes to dissolute living in a foreign country, some place where he doesn't know the rules, he doesn't know the culture, he doesn't know what he's supposed to do and not supposed to do, and so he ends up losing all of his money in dissolute living. I don't know what dissolute living means, but his older brother apparently does. He said he spent it all on prostitutes. Well, how did he know that? We don't know that from the story. But apparently, the older brother knew everything, and he knows that's the way he spent the money. And you know the story. The son comes to his senses after he's eating the pig slop, and he comes to his senses and says, why am I eating this pig slop? I could be eating at my dad's table. I could even be eating what the slaves eat and be eating better than this. I'd at least have something clean to wear. I'd at least be a respectable person. So he goes home to be a slave. And before he even reaches the doorstep, his father, I like to imagine in my own mind, his father is sitting on the porch where he's been sitting since the day he left, waiting and waiting and waiting for the son to come home, because he knows that one day he's going to come back. And when he does, he's not going to be the kind of person that says, where have you been? Why haven't you done this? Why did you lose all that money? What he's going to do is exactly what he does. He runs down the road and he greets him. And I like to imagine also that before he even gets out, just make me a slave, he's yelling, quickly, get the robe, get the ring, bring everything out, kill the fatted calf, we're going to have a party. Because he's excited. He's excited. Jesus tells us this story because the Pharisees and the scribes have been telling the people, you better do this, you better do that. And they're good people. The Pharisees and scribes are very good people. They jot all the I's and cross all the T's, and they make sure that everything is done properly, because that's the way things have always been done. And if things are done differently, then somehow the world's not going to come together. It's going to fall apart. And so the world has been held together for so long by the Pharisees and scribes that they want people to continue in that way. So they're good people. They really want the best. But Jesus says, that's not the way God is. You can even run as far as you can from God. You can run to the farthest foreign country where you lose all of your money, you lose almost all of your life, you lose everything, even yourself. And still, when you come back home, God is waiting there for you, gently calling you into his arms and bringing you back. That reminds me of the hobbits. Whenever we come home, God has got the best for us. God has got the presents for us. God has got everything there for us. And God has always been providing all for us. It's just that we have somehow wandered away from that and couldn't see it. I don't know about you, but in these past 20 years, I've not been here 20 years, but in the past 20 years, I've seen us as a country even become more and more like this younger son, where we have gone off into the foreign country, as it were, and somehow we have forgotten who we are. We no longer get along with each other. We no longer like each other. We're at each other's throats all the time. We've wandered far from God even. And because of that, we've forgotten how good God's love is to us. And we've forgotten how good that love is to others as well. Because if you look at the older son, he doesn't want to know that the other, his younger brother, he doesn't want to know that the other is loved by the Father. All he wants to know is, you have got to make sure that everything that's mine is here, and you have got to make sure that this son of yours doesn't get a party, because I've never been given a party. And instead of turning on the older son, the father turns and looks at him and does exactly the same thing to him that he did to the younger. Everything that's mine is yours. But we have to celebrate. We have to celebrate. I don't know about you, But whenever I look around at our communities and our lives today, all I see is that person, that person, that person. We've changed our language from our community and our fellow citizens to those people, those over there that I don't like. We've changed our whole mentality. We've changed our whole lives into something that's less than human and certainly less than Christian, because we don't see the love of God for the other, but we sure want the love of God for ourselves. You see, this story breaks each of us open because it reminds us that we were in that far-off place, far from God at one time in our lives, and sometimes we do it even today. And when we do, and we come back, God is always there with open arms, ready to receive us. And for those of us who are always in our pew on Sunday and are always here doing what we're supposed to do, or always helping serve on Wednesday night, or always doing the things that we're supposed to do because we know we've been told that, by God, you better make sure that I get what's coming to me. And the Father looks at us and says, you have. You have everything that's coming to you. It's yours. Just accept it. That's Jesus' words to us today. Accept it. It's yours. Accept that God loves you. And then I guarantee you, it'll change your understanding, and it'll change the way you look at others. You won't be able to say, but this, but that other person, because that other is now your brother. Amen.